Good day and welcome to another session of Latin Math Drive tutorials. So in this tutorial, we are going to discuss about how to perform operations on fractions with our scientific calculator. So we will first start with the basics. We will talk about how to input fractions and mixed fractions into the calculator, and also how to leave your answers in decimals and mixed fractions form. And secondly, we will discuss about operations on fractions. That is, how to multiply, divide, subtract, and add two fractions. So without wasting much time, let us move on to the first thing on our video outline. So the first thing on our video outline is the basics. And we are going to use some sample questions to help us familiarize ourselves with how to input the fractions and mixed fractions into the calculator. So these are the questions, and we are to simplify the following fractions and leave our answers in both decimals and mixed fraction form. So for our first question, we have 2 out of 6. So we have to input the fraction 2 out of 6 and simplify it using our scientific calculator. And how do we do that? So you first have to input the numerator, which is 2, followed by the division sign. So this is the division sign. Then afterwards, you tap on the denominator, which is 6, followed by your equal to sign. So if you simplify 2 out of 6, you get 1 out of 3. And instead of going by this method of inputting the fraction, you can use an alternative way. And what is that alternative way? You first have to input the fraction sign, and then you input the numerator, which is 2. Then afterwards, you use the arrow keys to navigate to the denominator. And then you input the denominator, which is 6. So I have successfully inputted the fraction 2 out of 6. So if I want the calculator to simplify it for me, I simply tap on my equal to sign. So if you simplify 2 out of 6, you get 1 out of 3. And if you want to convert this particular fraction into decimals, you simply tap on SD, which means 2 out of 6 is the same as 1 out of 3, which is also the same as 0.333333. And now, let us move on to the second question. So for our second question, we have 9 out of 6. So I first input the numerator, which is 9, followed by the fraction sign. So this is the fraction sign. And then I input the denominator, which is 6. Afterwards, I tap on my equal to sign for the calculator to simplify the fraction. So which means 9 out of 6 is 3 out of 2. And as I initially stated, if you want to convert this particular fraction into decimals, you simply tap on SD. So if you tap on SD, 3 out of 2 is the same as 1.5. And when we check the result is 3 out of 2, which is an improper fraction, which means it can further be converted into mixed fraction. And how do we convert this particular fraction into a mixed fraction? Now, when we check on top of the SD button, we can locate another mixed fraction sign. And this particular sign is used to convert the result into mixed fraction form. And it is yellow in color, which means I will have to use the shift key to activate it. So I simply tap on shift, and then I tap on the SD button. And it simplifies it for us as one whole number, 1 out of 2, which means if you have 9 out of 6, it is the same as one whole number, 1 out of 2. Now, let us move on to the third question. So for our third question, we have a mixed fraction. So we have to input a mixed fraction into the calculator. So what you have to do is to first input the whole number, which is 2. And afterwards, you activate the mixed fraction sign. So when we check on top of the fraction sign, we can locate the mixed fraction sign. And if you want to activate this particular mixed fraction sign, you use the shift key to activate it. Why? Because it is yellow in color. So I tap on shift, and then I tap on the fraction sign. And afterwards, I input the numerator, which is 1. Then I use the arrow key to navigate to the denominator, and then I tap on 3. So I have successfully inputted the mixed fraction into the calculator. So I simply tap on equal to sign for the calculator to simplify it for us. So if you have 2 whole number, 1 out of 3 is the same as 7 out of 3. And there is also an alternative way of inputting this particular mixed fraction. So instead of going by the first method, you can also use this particular method to input the mixed fraction. So what you have to do is to first activate the mixed fraction sign. So the mixed fraction sign, as I initially stated, is located on top of the fraction sign. So I tap on shift and the fraction sign to activate the mixed fraction sign. And afterwards, I input the respective numbers. So we have 2 whole number, 1 out of 3. So I first input 2, then I use the arrow keys to navigate to the numerator, and then I input 1. Then I use the same arrow key to navigate to the denominator, and then I input 3. So I have successfully inputted the mixed fraction into the calculator. So I tap on equal to for the calculator to simplify it for us. So 2 whole number 1 out of 3 is the same as 7 out of 3. And if you want to convert your results into decimals as I initially stated, you simply tap on SD. So 7 out of 3 is the same as 2.333333. And if you want to convert the result into mixed fraction, as I initially stated, you use the combination Shift and SD. So I tap on Shift and then I tap on SD. So 2 whole number 1 out of 3. So that is simply how we input fractions, mixed fractions, and also how to convert our results into fraction and mixed fraction form. So we are done with the basics of inputting fractions into the calculator. So let us move on to the next thing on our video outline. So we have operations on fractions. So we are going to use some sample questions to learn how to use the scientific calculator to simplify problems involving operations on fractions. So without wasting much time, let us move on to the questions. So we have to perform the following operation. And for our first question, we have 1 out of 3 plus 5 out of 3. So what you have to do is to enter the whole expression into the calculator. So 1 out of 3. So I first tap on the numerator, which is 1, followed by the division sign, and then the denominator, which is 3. And afterwards, I use the arrow keys to navigate to the right side of the fraction, then plus 5 out of 3. So I tap on 5, followed by the division sign, and then 3. So I have successfully inputted the whole expression into the calculator. So I simply tap on my equal to sign for the calculator to simplify these fractions for us. So the answer to this particular expression is 2. So you can also go by the alternative way of inputting the fraction, as we learned about in the beginning of this video. So now, let us move on to the second question. So for our second question, we have 2 whole number 1 out of 3 minus 1 whole number 1 out of 4. So I input the whole expression into the calculator. So I'll first input the first mixed fraction, which is 2 whole number 1 out of 3. So I tap on 2, and afterwards I activate the mixed fraction sign, which can be located on top of the fraction symbol. And it's yellow in color, which means I will use the Shift key to activate it. So I tap on Shift, and then I tap on the fraction symbol. Then afterwards I input 1, which is the numerator, and then I use the arrow keys to navigate to the denominator, and then I input 3. So I have inputted the first fraction. So minus 1 whole number 1 out of 4. So I use the arrow keys to navigate to the right side of the expression. Then I activate my subtraction sign. So 1 whole number 1 out of 4. So I tap on 1, and then I activate the mixed fraction sign by tapping on Shift and the fraction sign. And then I input the numerator, which is 1. The denominator is 4. So I use the arrow key to first navigate to the denominator, and then I tap on 4. So I have successfully inputted the expression into the calculator. So I simply tap on my equal to sign, and the calculator simplifies it for us as 13 out of 12. You can also go by the alternative way of inputting the mixed fractions into the calculator, as we discussed about in the first part of this video. Now, the answer to this particular expression is 13 out of 12, which is an improper fraction. So we can further convert it into mixed fraction. So if you want to convert it into mixed fraction, as I earlier stated, you use the combination Shift and SD. So I tap on Shift and then I tap on SD. So this is the same as 1 whole number 1 out of 12. And if you want to convert it into decimal, you simply tap on SD. So if you tap on SD, it gives us the result as 1.08333333. So this is basically how we use our calculator to perform operations on fraction. Now let us move on to the third question. So for our third question, we have 1 out of 3 times 2 out of 3. So in inputting this particular expression, I will be using the alternative way of inputting the fraction. So for our first fraction, we have 1 out of 3. So I'll first tap on the fraction sign, and then I tap on the numerator, which is 1. Afterwards, I use the arrow key to navigate to the denominator, and then I tap on 3. Then I use the same arrow key to navigate to the right side of the expression. So times 2 out of 3. So I activate the multiplication sign, and then I tap on the fraction sign again. I input the numerator, which is 2. Then I use the arrow keys to navigate to the denominator, and then I input 3. So I have inputted the whole expression into the calculator. So I then tap on my equal to sign for the calculator to simplify the expression for us. So if you tap on your equal to sign, you have 2 out of 9, which is a proper fraction, which means we cannot further convert this particular fraction into mixed fraction. So if you want to convert it into decimals, as I initially stated, you just tap on your SD. So this is the SD button. So 2 out of 9 is the same as 0.22222. So I have used the alternative method to input this particular expression. Now, let us move on to the last example. So for our last example, which is the fourth example, we have 2 out of 6 divided by 1 out of 3. So as I initially stated, you input the whole expression into the calculator. So I input 2 out of 6. So I'll be using the first method to input the first expression. And afterwards, I'll use the alternative method to input the second expression. So follow my demonstration. So I'll first input 2 out of 6. So I tap on 2, then I tap on the division sign, and then I tap on 6. So I have inputted the first fraction using the first method. And then I use the arrow key to navigate to the right side of the expression. And then I tap on the division sign. So divided by 1 out of 3. So I'll be using the second method to input the 1 out of 3. So for the second method, you first tap on the fraction sign, and then you input the numerator, which is 1. Then afterwards, you use the arrow key to navigate to the denominator, and then you tap on 3. So we have successfully inputted the whole expression into the calculator. So I just tap on equal to for the calculator to simplify it for us. So the answer to this particular expression is 1. When considering the ways of inputting the fractions into the calculator, I prefer going by the first method of inputting the expression because that is much simpler as compared to the second alternative method. So this is all for this particular tutorial, and we talked about the basics, which is how to input fractions, mixed fractions into the calculator, and also how to convert your results into decimals and mixed fractions. And we also discussed about how to use our scientific calculator to perform operations on fractions. I hope this video was very helpful. My name is Latin Elvis Nujal, and I hope we had an amazing time together. Thank you, and have a nice day.